Hi, welcome to today's video diary for Finding My Way with Pi, Purpose, Intention, and Emotion. I am Pi, and today I am thinking about childhood wounds and the patterns that that imprints on our lives when we decide things are a certain way, and then how we live in those patterns. And then what does it take to change it? So throughout this journey of finding my way with Pi, I've identified some of my own childhood wounds, and some of them are quite painful to dig up and surface and relive and heal from. But that is necessary. Awareness is the first step to healing, right? So I'll give you some examples of some of my childhood wounds. If I'm not enough, someone may die. That came into play when my father passed away. You see, he used to go on these drug benders or alcohol benders for days and days, sometimes weeks. And when he would finally come back home all strung out and crying and not well, he would show me that he had a picture of me on the dashboard in his truck, and that was what brought him home. And then he would apologize profusely, and then he would clean himself up, and he'd be good for a couple of months until he fell off the wagon again. And one day he didn't come home, and he died. And I locked in this, something inside of me wasn't enough to bring him back this time. And so I walk around with this: when things go bad, it's my fault because I'm not enough. That's one childhood wound. Another childhood wound has to do with money, feeling like I don't deserve it. One, because we grew up pretty poor, and I didn't know, I guess I just didn't know what it felt like to have money. And it didn't matter when I was very young, but as I got older, I started to notice the differences between our family and other families. And then when I did get money, it was associated with hurt and grief and loss, and then guilt. And I've talked about this one, my relationship with money, and actually presented an incredible healing opportunity for my mother and I. But when money did come into my life, it only came into my life by way of my father dying and passing away, and the little bit of inheritance that he had. And then felt guilty for even having that at all because of an interaction with my mom, which we've since talked about and have an opportunity to understand each other and open that door for healing and to become closer. So now I'm able to choose a different perspective and pattern with money. So those are a couple of them. One other example, because I had many struggles and traumas in my life, and I got some interesting patterns that served me until they didn't. Okay, so that's what's important to realize about these childhood patterns. They are there to protect you. They are there because you were hurt. The third one is that I decided after a bad car accident when I was a teenager, and I had a severe brain injury, and I had to work very, very hard to remap my brain to restore memory function and academic levels. And I decided then and there that I would have to give 200% to be successful. It was a matter of survival. That was the only way I could do it. It was the only way I could remap my brain, and it was the only way I would be okay in this world. One other one I'll share is that whenever things felt unsafe or highly stressful or highly traumatic, I felt I always had to run away to be safe. And that is a product of, at times in my childhood, being in unsafe environments and, abusive environments and experiencing those things. So those are my childhood patterns, or at least those that I've identified. And they've played out in my life in different ways. Giving 200% to survive. I gave 200% and I achieved a whole lot of things. Graduated with a full ride academic scholarship to Florida, any Florida university. I grew in the corporate world and became an executive. It served me until I burnt out and realized you can only give 200% for so long. And then other things like you have to run away. There were certain situations that were dangerous when I was younger. I truly did have to run away from. But where I'm at now, where I'm at now in my life, and particularly when I was in my corporate job, being in a high stress job did not equate to danger, but my body feeling that stress equated it to danger. And so I felt like I've got to get out of this. So these are examples, okay, of how those childhood patterns, just my examples, sharing mine personally and how they play out in my life and where they came from, and a couple of examples of how it played out in your life. So what do you do? What do you do when you're at the point in your life, you become aware of your patterns and you need to remap them? Well, what I've found is that being aware of it is the first thing. The next thing is deciding what the opposite of that is. So I feel unworthy of money and guilty when I have it. What is the opposite of that? I am worthy of money. And maybe I could say, and what is the opposite of guilt? Maybe I should have looked this up. I haven't looked it up. I'm worthy of money, and I gotta look this up. My brain just like, I don't know what it is. I could feel confident and generous and I guess worthy is the word, and deserving with money. So the thing is, I can use words to reframe and choose the opposite of what that childhood wound was or childhood belief. But then I need to connect that with the feeling, the positive feelings of feeling that way. And the only way I know how to do this is to meditate on it, to meditate on the positive feelings and to think of examples in my own life when I actually felt that way related to money. Or actually felt safe, right, in my life, and how I felt in my body at that time and what emotions I experienced at that time. Or when I had balance in my life. So instead of giving 200%, there was a balance there, and what that felt like, and connect to the emotions of that time. So whatever my childhood pattern is, to focus on that pattern, to then focus on what the opposite of it is, and then focus on what examples from my life when I felt the opposite positive of that pattern, and to really be specific about those memories and what those times were, and then what that feeling felt like. I heard this on a Mel Robbins podcast also, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's one of the things that I've been working on, is like reframing my belief patterns from a child. But then it's not enough to simply reframe it. You then have to like retrain your brain out of the ruts and the patterns it was in. And one way to do that is meditation. And then I heard this Mel Robbins podcast, and maybe it popped up because I talk about those types of things, but it's so cool. So anyways, I just wanted to process this out loud today, because I've realized that I've talked about rewriting and reframing my beliefs to the positive, because when you do a lot of deep self-reflection and self-healing, you definitely uncover some untruths that you decided when you were a child that were true, but they're not. And so that awareness piece is important, and I've covered how I've reframed it. But the piece that I've learned that you have to add on and tack onto it for healing is to focus on that reframing, connect it with a feeling, and connect it with real life examples in your life, because they are there. So that's what I wanted to talk about today and think about today. And I'm going to be finding ways to consolidate this and create like a custom made meditation for myself so that I can do this. And I think if I can do this every day for say 3 weeks or 4 weeks, maybe that will be one of my next experiments to see how that helps to remap some of those things so it doesn't feel like it constantly surfaces again. I want to transform into the way I've reframed those beliefs, and that takes effort. So that's what I'm thinking about today. Just had the money one pop up again, and that's why I got to thinking about it today. And then that podcast popped up, and I listened to that, and I was like, okay, so this is the thing. These are the thoughts and emotions today that I'm contemplating, and this is the journey. We all have this deep journey, this self journey. This is part of life. So for me, needing to remap some of my brain so that I can let go of old patterns that don't serve me. They're tools I have in the toolbox. I'll pull them out if I ever need them. But right now, I need a new pattern because I'm ready to and in the middle of onward motion and being here now and living my life and doing things in a different way, which requires different patterns for becoming who I want to be. So thank you for being with me on this journey. I'm so glad that you're here, and I hope it helps you too. I'll see you tomorrow.